I'm Megan Broughton. My biggest goals were I wanted to overcome the fact that I always wanted to be a mom, but then when I was in postpartum, I was lost. Like I could only think of the negative parts of all the non-sleeping and the, crying babies. And it was hard for me because I wanted to remember that they were my blessings that I had asked for so long. So that was a goal, was to overcome the fact of remembering all the negatives and remembering all the positives that my kiddos would bring to my life. First child, I didn't know I had it. When I had Abigail, my family is a very you kind of suck it up and move on kind of family. So when I was having such a hard time every day with her, I thought that it was just this normal baby blues, everybody gets it. But then after months of me still continuing to cry at everything, feel negative about what having a baby was, I finally just decided that it wasn't just your normal baby blues. But even then, I didn't actually go to the doctor for it. I just kind of, I'm going to use the word, suffered through it. And it finally got better about when she was about 9 months old. I think for me, the biggest one was feeling alone. I felt like I was the only person that felt like that, and that it was wrong for me to feel that way. And so I didn't know who to talk to. I didn't know how to make it better. Even having Tyler, my husband, he didn't understand, which I think is, in some ways it's okay because he's a guy and they're not going through all these hormonal changes. So I felt like I was just alone in the whole thing, and I didn't know what to do with that. For me, the main signs were I cried a lot, and I was super stressed. And I had it more with Abigail, my first one, than our second one, Brody, our second kiddo, Brody, because I think I knew more of what to expect the second time around, and so I knew how to kind of handle some of that better. But the first time with Abigail, I felt like I was crying all the time. There were days when I would call my mom because she lived about 30 minutes from us, and I was home alone. And I would be crying, and Abigail would be crying, and I would still be in my pajamas at 2:00 in the afternoon, and I didn't know what to do anymore. And so my mom would just say, "Bring the baby, I don't care what you're wearing." And I would hand my mom Abigail, and I would just sit on the couch and be kind of a lump. I didn't know what to do. I mean, I was still nursing, so I would nurse her and then give her back to my mom. And then, and then at night, because Tyler was working full time, I was the caregiver at night also because he needed to get up and go to work. And so I just remember just crying all the time. I didn't know what to do with myself. I did. So I had a miscarriage in between Brody and Abigail. And so that time, because your hormones, you get all the hormones and then you lose all the hormones, I was having a rough time again, and I reached out to him that time, and I did end up taking some medication for a couple of months just to help me through the hump of the emotions and the hormonal changes and all the things that go with that. I would talk to somebody the first time. I wouldn't have, a couple of things. I would talk to somebody about it and get more help because I think I could have enjoyed it more being a mom. And I think that my goal now is that nobody feels that alone time and just thinking that they're the only ones that go through that. And so I feel like I would find ways to outreach that more and find help for myself and for others. A lot of my coping would be either getting help from my mom, just letting my mom, learning that it was okay for somebody else to care for Abigail. And I talk more about Abigail with this because I think I suffered with postpartum a lot harder with her. My delivery was traumatic with Abigail, and so I think there's a lot that came with that I didn't expect. And so allowing my mom to take her when I needed her to. There were days when I would feed her, change her, and then hand her to Tyler and say, I need a break. Like, I cannot, I have to step away. I did, but I think there's a sense of pride too. I think there was a sense of pride to be like, no, I can do this. I wanted to be a mom. I wanted to stay home. And so to turn to somebody and say, this is not what I signed up for, that was hard. That was really hard to just tell somebody that. I do remember talking a little bit. We had a church family at the time, and I do remember talking to some of the moms that were older that could kind of help me through that. But even that, I think my pride got in the way of that. It was traumatic. And I can go, I got put on bed rest at 29 weeks. So that wasn't planned. I was teaching dance. I was, living life. I felt great all the way up until then. And even then I did not know, I ended up going into preterm labor. And so, but I didn't know it. I was new. I didn't know anything. And so my doctor was like, you're having contractions? And I was like, what? So they put me on bed rest. And so then my whole just plan went out the window. Like, I wasn't working anymore. I had to stay at home. And so my mom was babysitting me during the day because Tyler was at work. And so then they decided to induce me, which was not in the plan either. And being induced nobody prepares you for that. It comes hard and fast, and nobody told me what to expect. And so it came hard and fast. Well, then I took some medicine that I had an adverse reaction to. And so I turned into like this angry, almost like I was drunk, if I can say that. I was screaming. I was trying to leave the hospital, like all the things. It did not relax me at all. And so my doctor came in and he was like, what is going on? Well, then by the time they decided to give me an epidural, which I was trying not to get one, it was too late. So the epidural didn't work. The medicine wasn't doing what it's supposed to, and then Abigail got stuck. So, so it was just a very not how anything planned went. I probably should have had a C-section, but by the time they decided everything, it was too late. I had to do it naturally. And so I think there was just a lot of emotion with that this is not the rosy experience everybody, talks about. And so, I had a lot of repair that had to happen because she was too big. So I had all of that, plus my emotions of having a baby and staying home because I had been working. So I quit my job. It was just a lot of things going on, and I think it just sent me over the top of where I was. Yeah. So this is terrible. My husband, he triggered a lot of things. I think most of it was the trigger was feeling like it was all on my shoulders because he worked full time. And so it caused a lot of frustration. I guess I could go back and talk. So Abigail was colic for like the first 3 months of her life. So from like 11 p.m. to 3 a.m., she screamed. There was no, I could feed her, I could change her diaper, I could rock her, I could do all the things, and nothing would soothe her. And so with that, Tyler working full time, it was understood that he was sleeping because he had to get up and go to work the next day, and I could take naps or whatever. But the trigger for me was I needed him to be like, I don't know if more supportive would be the word, but just understanding that I still needed help just because I could stay home every day. And so a lot of the triggering would be like, well, I have to sleep because I'm going to work tomorrow, or, I'm tired, so I don't need, and I was nursing. So then the other trigger of that was she wouldn't take a bottle. This child was very, she was my strong-willed child. She wouldn't take a bottle. So I couldn't pump and give a bottle to Tyler and have her take it because she wouldn't take it. So a lot of the trigger was just me feeling alone and not being able to verbalize. I probably wasn't very good at it, verbalizing, I need help. Like, I need somebody to help me. There were some times when I literally would hand her. I remember one night I laid her in the bed and said, I don't care what happens. I'm going to the other room in the other end of the house. You have to take her. And it was like, I don't even know, 2 or 3 in the morning. And I was just like, I can't do this anymore. And at that point, I remember that was one of the worst moments, like where I was finally just frustrated enough that I was like, you have to take her or I might lose my head. I don't even know. Now I never felt like that again because I think I realized that I was at that point. And so I started like making sure I went to Bible study, doing things outside of the house so that I could not feel so alone. But I do remember thinking the biggest trigger was, well, you're home now, so you can help me. I'm home alone all day long. But then he would be like, well, I'm tired and I have to go to work tomorrow and all the things. And that would trigger me for sure. Yeah, a lot of it was from him, but he didn't mean it. It just happened. I don't know so much about warning signs, but I would definitely say don't feel ashamed. I'll probably get emotional about this. Don't feel like you have to be alone. Because, and it goes back to the pride thing, everybody's like, oh, you want to be a mom, it's the greatest thing in the world. It is the greatest thing in the world, but it is one of the hardest things you will ever do. Between carrying a baby, having the baby, and then taking care of a baby. The first night I came home from the hospital, Abigail had her days and nights mixed up, so she stayed up that entire night, and I hadn't had any sleep. And the next morning, Tyler comes in, never knew I was awake the whole time. And he's like, good morning, how are my girls? And I wanted to kill him. Like, I just was like, you have no idea. Like, I've been awake the whole night. And so I think my biggest thing to tell somebody else is, don't feel ashamed. You're not alone. We all, whether they're postpartum and they last longer, or they're, 2 or 3 weeks, there's still the big emotions. Our bodies go through so much change. And I was so young back then to not understand it. And I wish that somebody else had said to me, it's okay to feel the things you're feeling. but then work through that and find a way, like you said, to ease those triggers and ease those feelings, and so they're not so big. New moms. You don't have to stick to the plan. Even when you get home and you have a baby, like I remember thinking, you gave me this, Lord, you gave me this beautiful child, but I have no idea what I'm doing. And, you know, I had babysat before, I had worked in nurseries before and all these things. So I was like, I have this. When it's your own and you bring it home and then you're thinking, what do I do with this baby? You know? And so, don't feel like you have to stick to anybody's plan. Whatever works for you works for you, because it's gonna be what I feel like sometimes it's survival mode. I remember my dad telling me after 3 months it'll get so much better, and so and I remember at 3 months, like it was almost like a switch. Like she started sleeping better, her colic went away, like all these things. And I was thinking, how did my dad know that, you know? But do what makes the other stigma that I don't think people talk about enough is breastfeeding versus formula. You do what you have to do for your baby. If your baby's not getting enough food because of whatever's happening with the breastfeeding, give them a bottle. It's not going to make them, it's not going to change their health. It's not going to do, you know, you have to make sure. I have a best friend that wasn't able to, and she kind of had that same like shameful feeling. But I told her, I was like, there's no shame in making sure that your baby gets fed. So what I would say is, you make your own plan and don't listen to anybody else. Yes. In so many different ways. I got the guilt of, why am I not happy right now? Why am I not enjoying this? I got the guilt of, am I doing this right? You know, okay, she's screaming. Why is she screaming? Like, why can't I figure out how to make her happy? I went through a lot. I think breastfeeding was hard with her, being a new mom, trying to figure out the things. But then I also went through that guilt of, if I wanted to go somewhere, I didn't want to leave her. So it was this weird, like, I need a break, but then when I take the break, I feel guilty about taking the break. So there was a lot of guilt in that too. I still feel that way sometimes. I didn't realize that I had it to the degree that I had it until I was older. Because now looking back, I really think that pretty much my entire life I had some kind of hormonal imbalances, but I don't think that doctors really paid attention to that. You know, and so when I was in my probably early 20s, I did take some medication for about 3 months, and it helped a lot. And then until I had a full hysterectomy at 38, and I went down into like but it wasn't depression. It was, well, I guess it's depression, but it was because I don't have hormones. And so, but I had a really great doctor that finally looked at me and said, there's no reason to feel like that. Like, we can fix these things. And so until I figured all that out, I hadn't really realized that I'd always had anxiety and probably some degree of depression growing up too. Because if we don't talk about it, that's when things can happen. I would ask more questions for sure. Through pregnancy, during expectations of being induced in labor, I would ask more questions afterwards. I would definitely want someone where I was then to know that it's okay to ask for help. I think I struggled a lot just because I thought it was not okay to ask for help. With my first one, I don't really know. I think I don't want to say this, but I feel like I just suffered through it. I think it just took time. It took a lot of time for me to get the routine down. It took time for Abigail to be adjusted as a baby. Because I even think so, as a baby, that was probably pretty traumatic birth. Like, if a baby could tell you, I'm pretty sure she would be like, my head was squeezed, and like, I just think that for her there was trauma for me. And so I feel like a lot of the times we were just suffering through it together, and we were gonna fake it till we made it. I don't know. I just think that a lot of it was making sure I was involved in the church also. I really used Bible study as a way for me to get out of the house. Whether I felt like getting out of the house that day or not, I knew that health-wise, I had to find a way to leave and be out with somebody else. Now with Alice, our heaven baby, I talked about it more. My emotions were all over the place. And my mom at that point was like, I think we should talk to a doctor because there's a lot going on. So I talked about it that time, and so I did take some medication. With Brody, I feel like I knew enough about myself at that point that I knew my triggers, like we talked about earlier. I knew when I was getting to that point, and so I could kind of ward off a bunch of that before I got to the point where I was already kind of past the limit. The interesting thing about Brody was Tyler had left for DPS school to be a state trooper when I was 23 weeks or so, which was so hard because I was single parenting. I had a 3-year-old at home, and then I was pregnant. I was working, all the crazies, keeping the house together. He was gone, and so he had been gone 10 weeks. It was right before I ended up on bed rest, and he got injured, and so he got sent home. And so I think a lot of what helped me through Brody and my postpartum was that Tyler was home full time at that point. And so we were parenting together all day, every day, because he didn't have a full-time job at that point. And so I think with Brody, that helped a lot. I didn't feel the pressure as much that time. It was definitely a God blessing. I just think it's a passion of mine for moms to never feel the way I felt. I just know that there were so many moments when I felt so alone, and I didn't feel like I had anybody to talk to or anybody to relate with me, that I never want someone to feel like that. Even with a miscarriage, and even with it was such a low point and just the stigma that I don't know that society does it on purpose, but I think that society makes us feel like there's something wrong with feeling the way we feel. And so I never want a new mom or any mom. I mean, your kids could be 5 and you still feel, we all go through stages in life when things are hard, and parenting is hard. And being a mom, I think that society makes us as women like we're supposed to work, and we're supposed to, in quotations, we're supposed to work, and we're supposed to be the superhero mom with all the little cute snacks and all the things. And it's too much. It's too much pressure. And so I think we put pressure on ourselves because society gives us these things and says, oh, you should be like this. And I'm thinking, that's not what God designed us to do. He designed us to be the mom. And that's the biggest job ever. We're raising these tiny humans to be nice people and productive and learn how to, do right and wrong. And so that's a huge commitment. Okay, so I had 3 goals in life when I was growing up, and it was to be a teacher, get married, and be a mom. That was my 3 goals. I didn't care about anything else. And so I think when that came full circle, when I realized, okay, I've done all these, I've met my 3 goals in life. So just looking back and thinking, wow, okay, I met my goals, here I am. And just thanking God. There's just so much that I had been through to get up to that point. And there were so many times that I could have quit or given up, or, something had happened, or I don't know what, but just thinking, wow, you really did hear me, Lord. But it was all in your timing.